Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? This is very good. I've already got a lot of comments in the YouTube comments section already, which is excellent. My name is James, and today I'm going to be talking about the IELTS test format. So we'll be looking at the types of questions that you're going to be asked, what happens in each section of the exam. So while we're doing today's live stream, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So if anybody has any questions during today's live stream, just write it in the comments and I will try to answer all of your questions while I'm doing the stream today. So let's start with some comments. We've got lots of them just now. Hold on a second. So we got one here straight away. Hello, Sleepwalker. Sleepwalker said, hello, everyone. So nice to meet you. And we got one, hello, James, as well. Leila was in our stream on Friday, and she's saying, hi, teacher James. So maybe how has your weekend been so far? Yes, it's been very good. Yesterday I went for a short hike, which was nice. I went to get a haircut as well and did some shopping. And today, well, most of today I've been preparing for the live stream, but also I went out for a short walk this afternoon. So it's been quite a relaxing weekend, Leila. So very good. Now, Leila talked about something on Friday, which was interesting. Where Leila's from in Saudi Arabia, she was telling us the weekend is Friday and Saturday, whereas in most other countries it would be Saturday and Sunday. So I think Leila now has passed the weekend. She's on to her new week. Sleepwalker is saying here, James, where are you from? And yeah, I'm originally from Scotland in the UK, just from outside the city of Glasgow, but I've been living overseas for the last 20 years. I've been living in a few different countries, but originally from Scotland in the UK. Thank you for that question, Sleepwalker. Leila is saying, teacher, I really like your method of teaching and your accent as well. I guess you're from England. Well, quite close, actually from Scotland, but it's part of the same country, the United Kingdom. So yeah, usually people make a differentiation between Scotland and England. And also in the UK, we have Wales and Northern Ireland. So there are 4 countries in the UK. Thank you very much for your compliment there. What else have we got here? Okay, Anna Marie is talking to Sleepwalker here. Very nice. And Leila's saying, yeah, my weekend is over. Back to work or back to the grind on Monday. Lavanya is saying, hello, James. Hello, Lavanya. I hope you are doing well today. And yeah, there we go. Anna Marie is saying Glasgow. Yes. So just outside Glasgow, quite near the airport is where I was brought up, in a kind of small town, but very, very close to Glasgow, Anna Maria. I thought your accent is similar to American. Now, that's an interesting thing you said there, Sleepwalker, because like a lot of people, when they when they leave the country that they have lived in, their accent does tend to change a little bit. So my accent has become a lot softer since I left the UK. Um, so yeah, it probably has changed a little bit. I don't know if it's similar to American, but if that's what you're hearing, that's completely fine. Remember, when it comes to IELTS, accents are something that are going to be important. In the IELTS test, you're going to hear a lot of different accents, accents from all around the world: Canadian, American, South African, lots of different British accents. So, getting used to as many accents as you can is a really important part of the IELTS test. Layla Singh here. I'm glad to talk to you, teacher, and I'm glad to talk to you too, Leah. Oh, thank you very much, Anna Maria. That's very nice. Um, it's super clear. Well, thank you. That is one thing again when it comes to the IELTS test. Being clear is very important. Enunciating your words, speaking clearly. So, a lot of people in their natural speech will tend to mumble quite a lot. They'll say, oh, and maybe they don't open their mouths as much as they should. So, I think it's important when it comes to the IELTS test to try and enunciate your words, use your mouth. Try to speak clearly when you do this. Um, Lavanya, you speak very slowly, so I easily understand your speaking. I have been an English teacher for 20 years. So when you are teaching English, especially in foreign countries, you have to change the way you speak. So I don't speak as quickly as I used to speak. I enunciate my words more because when you're in the English classroom, the number one thing is to be understood. You have to give your message across in a clear manner. So I think over the years, my speech has softened a little bit. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that everybody can understand clearly. Um, Another question. Um, how many people are usually in the commission that takes IELTS from the student? I'm not sure what you mean here by the commission. Yeah, could you clarify what you mean by that, sleepwalker? So, if you mean how many people take the test together, it really depends. It depends on your location a lot of the time. Some locations have huge centers where lots of people can take the test together. Some of the smaller locations, there won't be as many people taking the test together. One part of the test that I do know for certain how many people will be there is the speaking test, because the speaking test is one on one. The student and the instructor or the IELTS examiner. And that's actually a great question, Sleepwalker, because that's going to come up in today's lesson. We're going to be talking about some of the different parts of the test. And the speaking part is one part that is very different from the other parts of the test. And I will talk to you about that a little bit later. Um, if you mean by commission the people grading the test, um, there's usually one, the person who's doing your main test in speaking doesn't grade. They are sent to external graders, and usually it's two or three people, and they take an average score of that test. Um, okay, we'll do a few more questions, and then I'll go on to the main lesson of today's class. So Layla's saying many students want to immigrate to English country. Should they take the IELTS exam in their countries or after moving to those English countries? It really doesn't matter, Layla. The test is the same in every country in the world. Your score, if you get the score in China or in Saudi Arabia or Argentina or the UK or America, it doesn't matter. The score is exactly the same. However, one thing that might be an advantage about taking it in that English speaking country is you could be there for 1 or 2 or 3 months before you take the test. That's a really good way for your ear to get accustomed to speech in that country. So that would maybe be the only advantage, I would say. Um, the actual test is the same, whichever country you are in. Um, Usually, the examiners that are usually on IELTS, the only part that you will see the examiner is the speaking part, and you will be one-on-one with the examiner, Sleepwalker. Um, um, Josie, I think that is Josie. I from Ethiopia. It's Clear Speak, sir. Okay, I think that's first Ethiopian student. Very nice to meet you today, Josie. And we'll come back to some of the other questions. Oh, there's one more just now. What are the ways for English practice? Well, we'll come on to those things a little bit later. So keep your questions coming in the comments. Anything you want to talk about, leave it in there. And around every 5 or 6 minutes during today's class, I will stop and try to answer some of your questions. So we'll move on with today's topic, which is the IELTS test format explained. So, what we're going to do with this today is we're going to talk about the 4 disciplines in the IELTS test. Those are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. We're going to briefly look at the question types and talk about time limits and grading requirements for each of those sections. So we're going to be starting with the first discipline, which is listening. So this is the order you will take the test in. Listening will be first, reading will be second, writing will be third. Now, speaking, this is a little bit different, and I'll explain why. The listening, reading, and writing tests will all be done on the same day. It will take around 3 to 4 hours to do those parts. The speaking test will be done on a different day, and that will be within 1 week of the other parts of the test. So that could be before or after you take the other parts of the test. So the speaking is really quite a different part than all of the others. So we'll go on, and we're going to go through each of the parts of the test. And I'm going to try just to explain what kinds of texts and what kind of questions you'll be asked and what you're really required to do in each part. So the first part of your test is the listening part. And hold on a second. The listening part, you have three main things that you are required to do: to understand the main ideas and specific factual information. So you have to understand the topic and the main points in that listening. You have to try to recognize opinions, attitudes, and the purpose of the speaker. So, why are they talking? What is their opinion? What do they think about a subject? Do they have a positive or a negative attitude towards that topic? And also, you have to try to follow the development of an argument, how that begins, how it is structured in the middle, and how that argument ends. So, those are the three main things we have to be able to do in the listening. Now, one thing I hear students talking about is, oh, I don't understand some words. Now, this is the most important thing for me in listening. You don't need to understand every word. You have to understand the main ideas. Don't focus on the things you don't know, focus on what you do know. So if you hear a word that you don't understand, forget about it. Concentrate on the other parts. So in the listening, you will have 30 minutes to answer 40 questions. Then you will have an extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers onto the answer sheet they give you. Oh, let's go on to, well, I'll come back to that in a minute. So you've got 40 minutes in total for the listening. You will listen to 4 different recordings and you will answer questions about each one. Each correct answer will score a point. So the 4 recordings are very different. Recording 1 is a conversation between 2 people set in an everyday social situation. So that could be 2 friends meeting in a cafe, talking about their school work. It could be people on a bus talking about traveling. It's just an everyday social situation. Recording 2 is a speech set in an everyday social context. So this could be a speech about local amenities. It could be somebody talking about a schedule. The difference here is this is only one person speaking. Recording 1 is a conversation between 2, 3, or 4 people sometimes. So this one is probably easier to focus on, but maybe you have to find some specific details in what they are talking about. Recording 3 is a conversation set in an educational or training context, like a university tutor and a student talking about an assignment, or it could be a student asking questions about facilities on the campus. Lots of different possibilities, but it is set either in an educational or a work training context. And recording 4 is a monologue on an academic subject. So it would be a university lecture or a presentation on the in a company or something like that. So there's a couple of questions just came in. So I'll take a little break and go through some of the questions. Lavanya is saying, I'm planning to study Europe countries, must be wanted the IELTS test. Yeah, if you're planning to do an English speaking job in a European country, yes, the IELTS test would be important. There are some other tests that do that as well. It really depends on the company. Oh, sorry, planning to study. Yes, if you're planning to study, IELTS is a great test. A lot of European universities also accept TOEFL, but I think IELTS is probably the main test for that, Lavanya. Layla, could you please simplify specific factual information? Okay. Specific factual information will be things like dates, times, the names of people, where people are. So the specific factual information is going to be who, what, why, where, when, how. So we should be listening for that types of things. So maybe there's a conversation between two people and they're talking about going to the library at 9 a.m. in the morning. Well, there's your factual information. Library, the time, 9 a.m. in the morning. So that's what we mean by specific factual information, Layla. Hendrik has asked here, what is the meaning of e.g.? Is that short from Latin words? Yeah, it comes from Latin and it just means to give an example. If you're going to give an example, we can just use e.g. So yeah, anytime you see e.g., whatever follows that will be an example of the thing they have just talked about. So I like milkshakes, e.g., chocolate, strawberry, banana. So it's giving examples. Okay, now the conversation sometimes is between more than two people. And yes, sometimes it could be hard to distinguish between what each one says. Yep. But a lot of the time when you hear two people speaking, for example, if it's a man and a woman, you're going to hear the difference. There's could be a difference in accent as well. But sometimes it could be hard, Layla, to distinguish between what each one says. And that is part of your listening test, understanding, being able to understand who is speaking and what their opinion or attitudes are. So, yeah, it could sometimes be difficult. Sometimes it is a little bit easier. So, we have gone through the 4 different types of recording. Now, once you have listened to the first part, you will get your questions. And the types of questions in the listening will be multiple choice, where you get an A, B, C, D answer. There will be some matching questions. So maybe it will give you a word and what did they mean by this? And you have to match the answers. Sometimes it will give you a visual and you have to label that visual. So you have to say what this is and what that is. Sometimes you will be completing information. So it will give you a form or a chart. You have to complete the information from what you hear. Sentence completion. It will have a sentence and part of that is missing. You have to complete that. And some short answers. It will ask you a question and you will write your answer. So there's lots of different possible question types in the listening section. So that's basically the most important things I think you need to know about the listening section. Again, if you've got any questions about anything that I have explained in this first part, please write down in the comments. Also, In the comments, can you write down some of the things that you find most difficult about listening in English? Is it the accents? Is it how quickly people speak? Is it some people have difficulty? They understand women more clearly than men. So, what are some of the problems that you have when listening? So, if there's some problem you have, write it in the comments, and we can talk about that later in today's lesson. So, before we move on, let's see. Okay, you're welcome, Leila. Let's go on to the reading section then. So, in the reading section, you are going to do these things. You're going to read for the general feeling of the article. What is the topic? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it an opinion? You have to get a feeling for the article. You have to read for the main ideas. What is the topic about? Read for detail. Again, who, what, why, where, when, and how. This is very important. Understand inferences and implied meaning. So sometimes when you are reading, it's not clear just from the words what they actually mean, but that meaning is implied. So they don't have to say, for example, I love chocolate milkshakes, but they could describe chocolate milkshakes in a way that suggests the person loves them. So again, we have to recognize a writer's opinions, attitudes, or purpose, and follow the development of an argument. So a lot of these are similar to what we need to do in the listening part of the test. We have to get a general understanding, we have to get a more detailed understanding, and then we must understand opinions and attitudes and the development of the argument. So for the reading, you will have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions. You don't get any extra time to transfer your answers. Once the time runs out, you have to give your paper in. You don't get any extra time. Now, in the reading, there's two different types of tests. We've got the academic reading and the general training reading. They are a little bit different. So for the academic reading, you have 3 long texts taken from books or newspapers or journal articles. Text can be descriptive, factual, or analytical. Analytical just means looking at something in detail and pointing out some of the facts within that. So the general training reading is a little bit different. They're everyday subjects. The texts are taken from books, newspapers, notices, company handbooks, but there are more texts. So in part 1, there's 2 or 3 very short texts. Part 2, you have 2 texts. And part 3, you have 1 long text. So the general training is a little bit different. So this could be in part 1, you get a poster and you have to talk about the things on the poster, or you get a schedule of events or something like that, or a short leaflet. The question types for both tests, well, you will have some fill in the gaps where you've got a sentence with a word missing. We have to fill in the gap. Matching the headings. So maybe you've got some paragraphs. You have to match the most suitable heading for each paragraph. Complete the sentences. Give short answers to open questions. And then also answer multiple choice questions. So again, lots of different question types for the reading. So let's go back and look at some questions for a few seconds here. So where was the last one? Okay, so Sleepwalker is saying here, fast speech, especially British accent, I find the most difficult. Well, yeah, I think the problem with British accents is there's just so many of them, and some people speak very quickly. Um, a good thing to practice for that, Sleepwalker, maybe watch some British TV shows where people are speaking naturally, um, news programs as well. But there are just so many British accents. It's a small country, but there's so many different ways of speaking. Anna Marie is saying, when there is a word I don't know, I got confused and lose the full idea. So this is a great point, Anna Maria, because I mentioned this earlier on. And if there's something that you don't understand, the best thing to do is forget about it, because all you're going to, if you keep thinking about the thing you don't understand, you're going to stop listening to the next part. So yeah, that's maybe why you're getting confused and lose the full idea. So a good tactic for this is, when you hear the word, forget about it. But when the person finishes speaking, you could just say, "Excuse me, one of those words you used, I didn't fully understand. What does that mean?" So rather than just kind of going over in your brain trying to understand what that word could be, forget about it until the person's finished speaking. Then ask them, "What does it mean?" Um, if it's in a listening exam, just forget about it, because you don't want to waste time and mental energy on the things you don't know. So in the exam, forget about words you don't understand. I guess the hard part of listening skill is accent and the speed of their speech to understand. Yeah, I completely agree with this. The best way, as I said, is a lot of practice. Use, watch TV shows, listen to podcasts, try to hear speech that is natural at a natural speed. And remember, sometimes people just don't speak clearly. So the more that you can absorb, the more that you can listen to them, the better your listening skill will be. Yeah, we can lose a lot of our time. What should we do? Well, I think the the important thing here, if you're having a lot of trouble with the accent, focus on the words that you can understand, because that will give you a chance of answering some of the questions in the listening. So don't focus on the things you can't hear, focus on the things you do. There will be a lot of words that you do understand, maybe place names, times, people's names. Focus on them. You will have a chance to answer something. Um, okay. Give short answer to open question. So let's say you have done a reading, and the reading is on the subject about somebody's opinion about the Olympic Games. So maybe one of the questions is a short answer question, and the question might be, so if it is open, basically it means you can give any answer here. So let's say the question is something like, what did the writer mean by this? So let's say, mean by the Olympic spirit. So that, let's say that's the question. What does the writer mean by the Olympic spirit? So your answer to that could be the writer means the feeling of the Olympics. So there's a short answer to the open question. That's kind of what that would be. So it's a little bit different from multiple choice or complete the sentences because you have to show that you understand the topic or you understand details. So you have to write a short answer there. I hope that explained. Um, yeah, exactly, Anna Maria. We don't have time to doubt. Just continue to avoid losing time. You have said that perfectly. Um, okay, Kavinu from Sri Lanka. It's very nice to meet you today, Kavinu. I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. I hope you are well today. And Sleepwalker is saying hello to Kavinu as well. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the IELTS exam, which is the writing part. So, the writing part is assessing a variety of writing skills. So, you have to be appropriate. Your response has to match the question. You cannot just write anything that you want. You have to look at the question carefully and make sure your response is correct for that question. So let's say the question is something like, write about what you usually do on the weekends. So if you start your question by saying, well, I work every day. My work is very difficult. I am a chemical engineer. That is not an appropriate response. They are not asking that question. So that is the first thing that you really need to focus on. Read the question, make sure your answer is answering that question. Secondly, you have to organize your ideas. This is a major problem, I think, because a lot of people have good ideas and they just throw them onto the paper or type them. But you need to have a structure. This is where you come into using an introduction. Then you can use words like first of all, secondly, moreover, also. This helps you organize your ideas in a way that makes it easy to read and easy to understand. Also, try to use a variety of vocabulary and grammar and use that accurately. So, it will be testing you on how you use this vocabulary and how your grammar is used as well. It has to be correct and there has to be a variety to that as well. So, that is what you are being assessed on. Now, academic writing has two parts. Task one, you have to describe information shown in a chart or table. Oh, sorry, a second. Oh, what's happened here? I need to change something. I have made a silly spelling mistake there. Oh, it should be a chart or a table. Sorry, guys. So that's the first thing we would have to do. Describing information in a chart or table. This would be 150 to 250 words. And task two is to write a formal essay in response to an opinion or problem. This is 250 to 350 words. So obviously task one is shorter and task one you get less score. Task 2, you get more points for this. For the general writing, general training writing, there also is 2 parts. Task 1, you write a letter requesting information or explaining a situation. And again, this is about 150 to 250 words. And task 2 is to write a personal essay that is in response to an opinion or a problem. So a little bit different between the 2 parts, the academic writing and the general training writing. And you have 60 minutes to complete the writing test, and you manage your own time. This is something that is very important. Part 1, it's suggested that you spend 20 minutes on this, and then part 2, 40 minutes on that. The reason for this is part 2 is going to score more points. So this is the most important thing. So when you're doing part 1, make sure you look at the time. When it gets close to 20 minutes, think about, I need to finish this quickly. And then give yourself as much time as you can for part 2, because this one gets more points. So the 2 parts of the writing test are scored differently. Part 1 is weighted at 33.3%. Part 2 is weighted at 66. So part 2, you're going to get double the score of part 1. That is why it's very important to manage your time. If you spend 40 minutes on part 1, it only leaves you 20 minutes to do the most important part. So that is really, really important here. Let's go back to some of the questions before I go on to our final part. What did we have here? So Kavino, you're saying, as you think, is IELTS speaking related to the accent that we use when we're actually speaking? Kavino, this is an excellent question. Now, yeah, use your own accent. You are not being graded on your accent in the IELTS test. A lot of people get confused by this, saying if I speak with, let's say I've got Argentinian accent, or I've got a Middle Eastern accent, or a Thai accent, it doesn't matter. What does matter is how clearly you speak. Is your pronunciation clear? So if you speak with whichever, Kavinu said you're from Sri Lanka, so you'll be speaking with a Sri Lankan accent. No problem at all, Kavinu, as long as your speech is clear and is easy to understand, you will not lose points for your accent. So that's a great question, Kavino. Actually, isn't it? Okay. What kind of mistakes they might forget about for speaking section? I suppose if you just make a small grammar mistake, they may allow it. You know, if you use was instead of were, maybe. But the examiners are quite strict, Layla. So there's not many mistakes they forget about. So if you make small mistakes, they're going to take small amount of points away. But yeah, there's not really many mistakes they're going to forget about. The examiners are going to listen to you carefully, and every opportunity they have to take a point away, they will. So there's not many mistakes they're going to forget about in the speaking section. What kind of articles should we read to practice to develop our vocabulary? Great question, Sleepwalker. Well, as I had shown in the reading, um, if you're doing the academic reading, books, journals, newspapers, those are the types of articles. So that is a good place to start practicing reading. Newspapers are an excellent way. Go on to any website, the New York Times, the BBC, the Guardian. There's lots of great online newspapers. Read articles in there. You will find a lot of new vocabulary from those articles. Also, if you're doing the academic reading, specific journal articles, textbooks are always a good way to develop your vocabulary. In the general training, I suppose it's mostly everyday language. So even reading some notices, company handbooks, um, there's some good stuff on company websites as well. That can be useful because it's more about everyday subjects. So yeah, I think these newspapers, journal articles, magazines are also good. Some science magazines can be useful. There's a lot of science blogs online that could help you as well for your vocabulary. Um, what else do we got? Assess new word. Oh, so this is the first time you've heard this word. Okay. Assess. Um, is part one for underlining the answers. Now, Kavinu, are you talking about the reading or listening? Which part are we talking about here? If you could clarify that, that would be good. Anna Maria, if I use more complex word, will I get a better score? Yes and no. If you use more complex words correctly, you will get a better score. However, if you use a more complex word, but you use it in the wrong way, that could be a problem and you could lose points. So when you're using more complex words, make sure you understand the meaning, make sure you know how to use them. But if you can use them effectively, you will get a better score because this will show a variety of vocabulary. So yeah, that would be useful for that. Um, I should pay my attention to the second part more. Yeah. So Kavinu, give more time to the second part of the writing. Not necessarily pay more attention, but give more time. Definitely. Um, I never read newspapers in English. Well, Sleepwalker, today is your time to start. I'll give you 3 newspapers you could try. The New York Times is great. The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, it's completely free online. That's another really good newspaper. And another one from the UK is the Times. There's 3 good newspapers that you can start reading online. Um, Yes, excellent question, Layla. For example, if I don't understand some words because of the examiner's accent, could I ask him or her to clarify what they say? Yes. So there's a few different ways you can do this. So you could just say, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please? Or you could say it in a way where you try to tell them what you think they mean. So you could say, do you mean this? So, yeah, it is okay for you to ask them to clarify, and it will not lose you points on the test. but make sure you know how to do that. So use formal English. Could you repeat that, please? Or I'm sorry, could you tell me exactly what you mean? That's okay to do. Um, why we do the IELTS? Well, there's a lot of reasons. I talked about this in my stream on Friday. People who are planning to work or study in a foreign country, um, mostly English speaking countries, but also a lot of other countries require IELTS. If you're planning to immigrate to an English speaking country, it is very useful and it is part of the immigration requirements. So there are a lot of reasons. Also, some younger people want to go to school in foreign countries. They need an IELTS score. Yeah, so BBC CNN's another great resource. Yep, excellent suggestion, Anna Maria. That's a good way for reading and listening. And so, yeah, Cavino, you were talking about the writing part. Yeah. So when I explained the writing, so academic writing, you have to describe information shown in a chart or table is task one. Write a formal essay is two. And for general reading, a general writing, we write a letter and write a personal essay. Um, what's this? Ahmed, how can we do IY? Sorry, I'm not sure what IY is. Hamed, if you could explain what you mean by that, that would be good. Yeah, do you recommend to avoid using phrasal verbs on IELTS? Now, this is similar to Anna Maria's question about complex words. If you know exactly the meaning of the phrasal verb and how to use it, yes, use it in the exam. However, if you use a phrasal verb incorrectly, you would lose points. So, using phrasal verbs shows that you have a natural grasp of English. So, it is good to use phrasal verbs and it will show variety in your language. However, if you use them incorrectly, it could be a problem. So, if you're not comfortable with a certain phrasal verb, don't use it. If you are comfortable with the meaning of the phrasal verb, yes, you can use it. You're welcome. Um, is awesome. Okay. I'm starting to build new vocabulary. It's one of my weaknesses. Yep. That's great to hear, Anna Maria, that you're recognizing that as your weakness and you're making an attempt to address that. Using some of the websites that you've talked about for listening and reading is a great way to help improve your vocabulary. So you're doing well. Oh, wow, Kavinu, you are 12 years old. When will this examination be held? I have no clear idea, actually. Well, the exam is held a number of times throughout the year. It really depends on which region you are in the world. So in Sri Lanka, I'm pretty sure there'll be test centers in Colombo that probably run the test, I don't know, 6 times a year. It really depends on how many people are taking the test. But yeah, there are many tests throughout the year. It really depends on your location in the world to see how many tests there will be. But they are regular, and if you check in your location, you will find out when there will be tests in Sri Lanka. How can we speed up our reading ability? Well, there's no easy answer to this, Ahmed. It is all about practice. The more you read, and if you're reading every day, the quicker you will become at it. So there's not really any specific techniques for this. It's about volume, how much you read. And by practicing reading every day, you will naturally become quicker and quicker and quicker. There are a few other ways that you can read quickly, and that's by things called scan and skim reading, where you're not really reading every word. And that is something that in a future live stream, I think Robin is going to be talking about that in a future live stream. But I think the best way, Ahmed, is just to read as much as you can and read every day. Okay, well, this is a great way. Even if you're not planning to take the IELTS exam, by studying IELTS, you're still going to learn a lot of useful English, Layla. You're going to learn how to develop arguments, how to understand reading and writing as well. So even if you're not planning to take the IELTS test, IELTS classes are still very useful. Suddenly, if I will, I beg your pardon, please tell that. So I think I beg your pardon is good on its own. I beg your pardon, that's fine. You could also maybe say, please, could you repeat that? Or could you repeat that, please? I think those would be good ways. So I beg your pardon is fine. Or even, I beg your pardon, could you repeat that, please? Would be, or could you say that again? Those could be good ways. You're welcome, Ahmed. In the listening activity, what should we do? Maybe you missed that part of today's lesson. You can go back and watch the video again, Kavinu. I explained listening at the beginning today. Can we find last? No, you can't find the exact test. Now, the IELTS website has, I think, one or two full practice tests on it, their official website, but there are lots of resources out there that allow you to practice. You'll be able to do this on our website very soon. We will be uploading a lot of test material. It's not there now, but in the very near future, we will be uploading some practice materials for you, which will be based on previous IELTS test. Oh, hello, Kumar. And how much time should we dedicate to study for IELTS every day? Well, Anna Maria, this depends on a lot of things. How much time do you have? When are you planning to take the test? What is your target score for the test? And how far away do you think you are from that score? But the important thing here, Anna Maria, is every day. With studying anything, if you do it every day, it becomes a habit. You're going to end up learning more quickly. So if you've only got 1 hour free each day, 1 hour a day is fine. If you've got 3 or 4 hours a day, that's fine. But yeah, it really depends on a lot of things here. If your test is in 1 month's time, I would suggest studying 8 or 10 hours a day. If you're planning to take the test in 1 year, well, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day might be enough. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last section of today's lesson, which is about the speaking exam. And then I will come back to answer some questions at the end. So, for the speaking exam, the academic and general training tests are exactly the same. So there's not different tests here. There's one speaking test. And this is designed to assess a wide range of skills. The test will be recorded and it will be between 11 and 14 minutes. So, in this test, you will talk face to face with a certified examiner. You will be in the room. I think sometimes there's another person in the room who is monitoring what is happening as well. I'm not sure if they do that at all test centers, but I know they do at some. The test is interactive and it aims to recreate a real life situation, so a real conversation. And there are 3 parts to the test, and a varieties of accents may be used. Your examiner could come from the US, or it could be from the UK, could be from South Africa, could be from a number of places. So, a number of accents. You will be graded on your ability to do these things. So, communicate opinions and information on everyday topics and common experiences. You will be graded on your ability to speak at length on a given topic. You'll have to speak for around 2 minutes. You should organize your ideas clearly. So, again, this is important. Take your time to think, then give your answers. You should be able to express your opinions and support those opinions by giving reasons, and also to analyze, discuss, and speculate about issues. So, some parts of the speaking exam are quite straightforward, some are a little bit more difficult. So, in part 1, what's going to happen is the examiner will introduce him or herself. They'll say, good morning, my name is John, and I am your examiner today. Then they will ask you to introduce yourself, and you'll just maybe say something like, hello, my name is Suzanne. I come from Buenos Aires in Argentina. Then they're going to ask you to confirm your identity by showing a passport or ID card. That's very important. You cannot do the speaking part without photographic identity. Then in part 1, the examiner will ask you some questions about everyday topics. They will usually choose 2 topics and ask you maybe 4 questions about each topic. Now, I'm going to be doing another live stream on Tuesday, and on Tuesday, I am going to be talking about part 1 of the speaking exam. I will be giving you some example questions and answers, and looking at things that are good things to do and some things that you should avoid doing. So I'll talk about that in Tuesday's live stream in a lot more detail. In part 2, the examiner will give you a task card. The topic will be less general and more specific than the topics in part 1. You have 1 minute to read the card and prepare an answer. You can make notes during this time. Then in part 2, you will speak for between 1 and 2 minutes. The examiner will not interrupt during this time. You will speak for that full time. And then after you have finished speaking, the examiner will ask 1 or 2 follow-up questions about what you talked about. And then in part 3, the examiner will ask further questions on the topic covered in part 2. So let's say the topic in part 2 was, I don't know, international trade. The topic in part 3 will be the same, but it will go into more detail about that subject, and you will discuss more theoretical or abstract ideas. This part is more like a conversation about the topic. So the examiner will listen to what you talk about, and then they will ask you to explain maybe in more detail or they'll ask you some follow-up questions about the information you gave. So part 3 is more like a two-way conversation. So that is the speaking part of the test. Now, let's go back and look at some of your comments. Where did we finish? The last one we had was this one. And Cavino, you were saying in Colombo. Okay, so you're from the capital, Colombo. So there'll be test centers in Colombo. You would be able to find out when the test is and how you can take that. Layla, I'm so excited for the materials that you'll give for practicing. Yep. So this will be, I can't exactly tell you when, Layla, but it will be within the next month or two. We'll be uploading a lot of material to the website. So please check that out. The link to the website is in the YouTube description. So if anybody's interested in checking out the website, please click on that. Cavino, is it a difficult test? Yes and no. The thing about the IELTS test is it's hard to say if it's difficult or not, because it depends on the requirements. If your requirement is only 4 or 5, I would say it's not difficult. But if you have to score a 7.5 or 8, then I would say it would become a more difficult test. Anna Marie, I would like to have a 7.5 in December. I'm about B2 now. So B2 is probably about 5.56, maybe around a 6. So yeah, you've got a lot of time, Anna Maria. I think you're doing a lot of correct things. You're reading, you're trying to do things every day. Yeah, you've got a lot of time, but use that time wisely, building your vocabulary slowly, day by day, listening, practice some writing at least 2 or 3 times a week, practice short essays, practice writing letters. So you're guessing about 4 hours a day? Yeah, I think if you study 4 hours a day for 6 months and you're already got a good ability just now, I think you can get 7.5, Anna Maria. So again, Cavino, throughout today's lesson, you can see all through here, it tells us the types of questions for listening, for reading. Yeah, you get these types of questions. And then in writing, yeah, those are the types of questions for those. And then the speaking, you have 3 different parts to it. So those are the kinds of questions. Tomorrow, sorry, on Tuesday, I will be giving you specific examples from the speaking test of some questions. Sleepwalker, this is a good question. If I made a mistake while speaking and noticed that, should I correct myself or keep talking? Now, if the mistake is just a small grammar mistake, like you used was instead of were, or you used did instead of do, don't go back and correct yourself, because that will affect your fluency, I think. However, if your mistake affects the understanding, affects people's ability to understand what you're saying, I think you should then go back and correct it to make sure your message is clear. But yeah, if it's just a small mistake, don't worry about it. It's gone. Focus on going forward. If it's a major mistake, yes, I think you should go back and correct it. So we've got a lot of hellos. There we go. Oh, hello. Thanks for the explanation. Okay, that's Julio. Very nice. Okay, you're very welcome, Layla. And I have to go now. Hope to see you later. And I hope to see you later too. And Anna Maria, thanks for the information, James. I'm waiting since now for the next live stream. Well, Anna Maria, I will be streaming again around the same time on Tuesday. So, yeah, come and join that stream as well. So I think we're going to wrap up there for today. So we've done quite a lot today, kind of trying to explain the test format. I hope some of the explanation makes it easier for you to understand what to expect in that test. There will be some more streams coming up in the next few days. Robin will be streaming tomorrow. I will be streaming on Tuesday, and then we will make a schedule later in the week. Now, before I go today, if anybody has any final questions, can you write them just now? And I will answer them before we finish the stream. So I think about another 5 minutes if we've got some questions to answer. Sleepwalker. Okay, I think to make a mistake in basic grammar, it would be a big mistake. Well, if you make a mistake in basic grammar and you go back and correct that, you could lose kind of what you were saying. It could affect the fluency and the coherence of your speech. So it could end up creating more problems, Sleepwalker. So, yeah, it's really, if you go back and correct it quickly, and it doesn't really affect the flow of your speech, I don't think it's a problem. But also, I don't think it's a huge problem to make a small grammatical error. And you may lose a little bit of a point on your score for grammar, but it's not going to lose as much as you would lose for lacking fluency and coherence. But again, each situation might be different. If it's something that's really important, always go back and correct it. If it's something that's very basic and minor, I would just forget about it. Oh, Robin's on the stream. Robin's saying here, I will stream tomorrow. I look forward to it, Robin. You're welcome, Kavina. I will see you in the next class. You're welcome, Ahmed. I'm glad that you understood the explanation. What have we got here? The highest marks that we should take in the test. Well, I explained this in Friday's live stream. It's scored on a band system. So the highest points is a score of 9. The second highest is 8.5, then 8, 7.5, 7, and goes down to 0. So the highest score you can get is 9. That would be like A plus. Sorry, Sleepwalker. Yes, I mean, it would be not great to make simple mistakes at all. Well, that's the best way to not correct mistakes, is if you don't make the mistake in the first place. But being realistic, if it's your second language, people are always going to be making mistakes. And Anna Maria is saying, see you tomorrow, Robin. And okay. Is there any easy tricks in IELTS? This is going to be the last question for today. And no, there's not really any easy tricks. It's a hard test. It requires a lot of studying. It requires a lot of time. There are some tips that I can give you to help you, but there's no quick way to study for IELTS. You have to have a broad knowledge of English. You have to be able to read and write, listen and speak. So, yeah, It is, there's no shortcuts. So there are some tips I can give you, Ahmed, and in the future live streams, Robin and I will be giving you some tips, but the fact is it's a lot of hard work. Let's see, we've got, okay, you guys are talking. Yeah, excellent, Anna Maria. There aren't easy things in IELTS. It is a difficult test. You're welcome, Ahmed. And I think at that point, I am going to wrap up today's stream. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Some great questions today. And it's good to see a lot of you interacting with each other. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the website, check out our Facebook and Twitter accounts as well. And hopefully, you're all back tomorrow with Robin, and I will see you on Tuesday. I'll be back giving a lesson on part 1 of the speaking test. Okay, everyone, thanks again, and bye for now.